Good morning again, everyone. This is Debbie, and I am lucky enough to get started today with the Accelerator group. You were all just speaking about the Redox 5 last Friday, how excellent it was for doctors. Okay, because I've got a nurse who wanted to see it. Thank you for that. We're very lucky. I do have training for today, but in the meantime, I had been speaking to Paul HOffman, and he wanted to come on and offered to come on to introduce this to you, to take this as a real business, because it is, and to give us some tax tips that you may not have heard. I know Tom Robinson just did it a couple weeks ago on the mastermind, but Paul's got some other insights. And so with great pleasure, I'll turn this over to Paul HOffman to do some training. Thank you, Paul, for being here. And I'll mute so I don't get in the way.
I'm unmuted. All right.
Yes.
That was my first level of technical challenge for the day.
I see.
You know me.
He's a good accountant, maybe not so good on the computer. Go ahead.
Very, very true. Well, good morning, everybody. Yeah, I'm a CPA. I've been practicing accounting, tax, business advisory services for about 48 years now. And I actually have a goal that in 2 more years, when I hit 50 years, I'm going to actually start knowing what I'm talking about and giving up the idea of practicing. But for some reason, accountants are always in practice. Also, many of you may know that my significantly greater than 50% life partner and ASEA partner is Dr. Carolyn HOffman. And the two of us bring over 50 years of network marketing experience to the table, which is a little bit different than most accountants. I can also say that now it's 3 years or 4 years that we now bring next level marketing experience to the table, which we're not going to get into that. Debbie can another day, but you all can research it if you haven't yet. But there is a major, major difference between the two. And this is the philosophy of this company, to not only bring unique products to the world, but also to change the image of this industry. And I can say with personal confidence and experience, they have done so. My approach today, a little bit different than Tom's, a little bit different than I've done in the past, because you're looking to hear what tax deductions, you're all excited about that. You know, what can we get away with? What do we need to do? But I think we have to take a big step backwards, because we're making a huge assumption. At least I'm hearing an assumption. You all may not realize that, but I will assume that everybody on the call today is here because you're actually wanting to build a business. There's a lot of folks, 97% of us in this industry like to share the technologies and the product. They would like to create a revenue stream sufficient to pay for their own products. And probably that is the vast majority of the people. There are some like ourselves many years ago, when Carolyn had said to herself that we have our first child wanted to go into private school, and maybe she can earn a little extra money just to be able to put that Talia through her private school. And then there's that 2, 3, 4% of us, and I'm looking at you now, that say, no, I want to build a business, and to maybe follow in the footsteps, in the words of Tyler and Vertus, is to build a legacy, which is awesome, which is it's an incredible feat. It is certainly a challenge. But I think we need to take this step back once again and actually ask us, what is a business? Because if in fact we don't know the definitions of things that we're trying to achieve, it's very difficult to achieve them. So one of these days I'll memorize this, but until that point, I will read it, not to get it wrong. So the IRS says that a business is any activity carried on for the production of income from selling products or performing services, and the primary purpose of, quote, income or profit, end quote, or income-seeking activities with, quote, continuity and regularity. So what the IRS says is their definition of a business. I find it quite interesting that if we were to listen to Trish Schwinkler, who I'm sure all of you know, who's #1 earner in ASEA, she will frequently say, you need to be consistent and persistent. I think you can hear the similarities between the IRS's statement of continuity and regularity and Trish's statement of consistency and persistency. So the first question would be is, who here is consistent at what they're doing and persistent at it? And I think one could take the liberty of saying that those two words together means that on an ongoing, regular basis, you are taking those activities that the IRS would say are those kind of activities that you would be building a business. And I say that because there are some people in this industry who will go all out for a week or two, maybe a week. They'll meet 10, 20 people. Then they lay off for a while and they get back on again. So the foot is on the gas pedal, it's off the gas pedal, back and forth, back and forth. And certainly the concept of consistency is lost when you're doing it sporadically. That being said, I will make an exception to my own rule once I talk about the next thing that I think needs to be understood. So first off, the IRS's goal, if we were to get audited, their goal is to prove that you're not in business. Why do they want to do that? Particularly in most businesses, especially in an ASEA network marketing business, the first several years you have losses. And if you're in a business, by definition, then those losses are available to deduct against other income, which everybody in this industry is always touting. That's a wonderful thing. I think for everybody on this call, that is true. But why is the IRS trying to disprove that? What they're trying to do is actually trying to look at you and look at our activities and say that we're nothing more than a hobby. And a hobby basically means that the IRS will allow expenses that you incur to generate your income only to the extent of your income itself. So for many of us in the first year of a network marketing company, you may earn $2,000 the entire year, but you go to conventions, you go to local events, you you have your Zoom subscription, you have your internet, you have other expenses, which we'll go over later. And typically those expenses exceed that $2,000 of income for the year. And again, the IRS's goal is to say, I don't think you're a business, I think you're a hobby, and then disallow that excess expenses. So it's something we don't want to do. How do we go to the IRS in the inevitable situation? And there are many people in this industry, self-employed individuals, who are audited. Because it takes a while for businesses and again for network marketing companies to really start to show a profit, what we want to be able to do, as the definition talked about, was that the intent to make a profit is really what it's all about. And the first place we do that, which is something, again, rarely ever discussed, and it's not very complex, truly, but is to sit down and do a business plan. And a business plan is nothing more than a roadmap. My example is frequently, Carol and I, we live here in Virginia. Let's assume I have a wedding in Seattle, and I want to get to that wedding, and it's in 2 weeks. I don't Google it. I don't get a map. I don't do anything, but I kind of know it's west by northwest of where we live. So I'm going to start driving. I don't know the roads very well. I'm in Nashville. I'm in Ohio. I end up in Texas. Eventually, I'm going to get to Seattle. It was not a very good plan. If I Google it, I go, oh, here's 2 roads, 3 roads, main roads, and I'm there, I guess, in 2 days of good driving. The business plan is the same thing. if there is an intention to have a profit, we have to show the IRS that we are taking and driving along the path to that profit. I'm going to give a diversion to an example. Many, many years ago, I did have a network marketer, had an audit. And this was the days kind of almost before computers. Things were much, much more manual. And we went in there and immediately, the auditor was negative. It was a horrible industry. We're wasting everybody's time. But I took about a half an hour and I went through all of her documentation to substantiate that on a day-to-day basis, she was running her network marketing business no different than an accounting practice or a spa or any other business, taking care of those activities. And those activities were, she had ring binders, and you can take a ring binder or figure out through IT how you do it in a different fashion, but she had a ring binder. She had a sheet for every single person she spoke to. She had the date she contacted them, what they spoke about. She followed up, had follow-up dates. If she was mailing out a tape or CD, she made notation of that. She followed through the entire process. And one could argue that if we're not doing that on a day-to-day basis, are we really in business? Are we kidding ourselves? Or are we just hoping that things are going to work out? And we find that if we do things methodically in an organized fashion, you're going to end up getting where you want to, and we'll not miss that wedding in Seattle if I take the right route. So the business plan, again, it's not something that has got to be in great depth. I'm sure a lot of you have heard people writing 30, 40-page business plans. But here, if we know what the stops are along the way of this highway, we know director, D300, D700, and you get into your executive levels, and then you get into your leadership levels. And I'm not going to embarrass anybody, but I would ask you to raise your hand if you absolutely know the requirements for each of those levels. How many D300 legs you need for a gold? How many, what volume do you need for a diamond? All right, because those are your mile marks that you need to know yourself. And again, even if we don't write any of this down, if you don't know what those goals are, it becomes very difficult to get there. But our business plan would simply say what my goals are over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, depends on how long you want to write it out. And those are realistic goals. And they are, I signed up as an associate today. And in 30 days, I want to be a director 300. In 60 days, I want to be a director 700. I know bronze is 6 months, whatever it may be. But it's not just those little labels. You then have to put down at each spot, what are the requirements? And then you dial it back more and say, well, what do I need to do to meet those requirements? Well, if I need 2 D300 legs to qualify for anything, it means I need to have 2 associates who they or below are each ordering 300 BV a week. Well, how many people do we need to speak to find that one person? And then it's a little challenging in this particular company because it's a weekly qualification. So maybe you don't find 2 D300s because they're not going to qualify every week. So you have to start laying out the realistic probability of what you need in order to hit your weekly qualifications. And you do that, and you hit the number of people. Now you sit back and say, well, I need to talk to 10 people this week on a weekly basis. And now you need to have the documentation on who you spoke to. Was it a face-to-face? Was it a Zoom call? Was it getting together with the best friend you haven't seen in a couple of months or years? All right. Documentation is really what's critical. And as you move along this continuum path, you can actually put in there week by week your commission you earned. And you can reflect back on that commission and say, well, number one, did that commission represent the efforts that I put in? And the odds are it's not going to, because we know in this industry we plant seeds on an ongoing basis. and that the work we do today will very often pay back in 6 months or 6 years. But it's the documentation. That's the second thing with respect to the IRS, what we need to do. And again, we'll get to the expenses, which everybody's excited about. But the truth of the matter is, if you focus on the expenses that are deductible and not focus on the income that's going to bring success, then most likely you're not going to have success. Because you need to focus on the profits, the rewards, not just the tax savings. So documentation is critical. Documentation is not, oh, I have a credit card receipt. Now, my credit card statement, here's all, this credit card statement has only business expenses, and there's restaurants, and there's postage, and there's travel. For an IRS, that's not documentation. That's simply proof of an expenditure. It's the receipt that you have to retain from the activity that is the documentation. So we have a receipt that we bought tickets to a convention. We have the receipt for the airline. We have the receipt for the hotel. If I'm meeting somebody at Starbucks to do a one-on-one presentation, or if I'm meeting with a downline to help answer questions, you have a receipt from Starbucks. Now, when it comes to meals, it's a little more onerous because the IRS, they realize we kind of stretch and push what our business expenses, business meals. So on those business meals, the government wants you technically to put down who you met with, what was the objective of that meeting, and what did you discuss? And ideally, what was the outcome? It becomes a little onerous, but if you do it right then and there, if I'm, traveling the country and I'm in Pearl's hometown and we want to get together, all right, I'm going to put down that I had lunch with Pearl. I'm going to put down, we talked about maybe her organization, how she's doing, what she's doing with it, how many people she's talking to. She may say, Paul, I would love to become a diamond in a year. We'll have that conversation, what I see to be the path for that. What I do know is that Pearl is consistent and persistent, continuity and persistency in her business. So it's the much more important to take the right actions, and the actions are going to lead to the right results.
May I ask a quick question there?
Sure.
As far as receipts go, I have a credit card for my business, and everything on that I break out and stuff. Does that count as a receipt? What you've charged?
The actual receipt needs to be, and what I try to do myself is have an envelope,
Right.
month by month, and I just drop the receipt into it, whether it's postage receipt or meal or something, but it's actual receipt is what the government looks for, because the credit card, as far as the IRS is concerned, is a proof of expenditure.
Right. Okay.
Not a proof of an expense.
Okay.
The other aspects, we have business plan, we have documentation of the expenditures that we do, but we also need to have documentation of our activity. Again, we're talking about from the IRS point of view and from an audit. We want to survive an audit, but at the other perspective is, and I wholeheartedly believe it, that if we take the actions that we are traditionally would do in a traditional business for success, then we will be successful. If we decide to shortcut those steps, then we're shooting ourselves in the foot. So that means, like with the audit now, 25 years ago, I guess, she had her paper. She had the diary of everybody she met. And so she had it by individuals, but then she also had a calendar. So we now have Outlook and all sorts of other kind of documentation. We need to schedule those things, our daily activities. We talk in the industry above the line and below the line activities. Both are very critical, but I'm not sure exactly where it would be, depending on where you are on the continuum, but you're probably at 70, 80% above the line activities, 20, 30% below the line activities. Because we see the success and failure no differently than the IRS would. If you show the IRS that you're doing 90% below the line activities, and below the line activities are important, but they're administrative, and rarely do they actually move to income. So if the IRS sees that we are spending most of our time below the line, they're going to say, you got a hobby. If you look at your check and you're not happy with your check each week, look at those activities from the week before or 2 or 3 weeks before. How much of that time was spent below the line? On the other hand, the good news is if you said, wow, that's the first time I got over $200 this week, and you look back over the last couple, 3 weeks and say, wow, I talked to 22 people. I did a fast forward. I did, so everything is hand in hand. You can't just, as I remember hearing David Silverman say this all the time, this is not net wish marketing. It is network marketing. So we need to work on that. Speaking of network marketing, it is an industry of huge amount of phrases and sayings. The one I love the most, as many of you, if not all of you, have already also heard, that network marketing is nothing more than a personal development course wrapped up in a business. And that if we don't grow personally, it's going to be very difficult for the business to grow. If you graduate massage therapy school and you go into business and you never improve your skills, the odds of becoming a successful massage therapist is pretty thin. They're always working on how to improve their skills. They're learning more about biology and physiology of the body. They're doing things that they need to know in order to perform their services better. We are no different in this industry. We actually have probably one of the most difficult industries on earth, because besides trying to explain our technology, every single day we are out there talking to people. People are not coming to us. When someone walks into your store, when someone makes an appointment with a massage therapist, it's easy because they want your services. We have to talk to people. And if there's a variable in business, it is the personalities of the people that we work with. They are all different. One of the things we have to do in developing our business and our personal development is we have to learn how to read people. We have to understand where they're coming from. Because another wonderful saying is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's really, really critical here too. But caring about somebody, the message with which you convey has to be done in a way that they will listen to you. If you're lecturing them, if you're telling them that they need to know this because it's so important for them to hear about this, and this is the best message on earth, and if they ever want to walk a straight line instead of limping or whatever, you can't do that. We have to learn where they're coming from. Personality development. I mean, not only your own, but you have to know what the different types of personalities there are. Because there are some people who want to be simply told, yes, this is something you need to try. And then there are others who don't want to be told the darn thing. You have to say and speak to them in a way that it's almost their idea that they want to create the use of this problem. So personal development, I'm terrible at remembering names of books and all. Debbie can give you all a long, long list of books and videos. But if you're not out there spending some part of your week below the line in developing your own skills, questions are your answers, I think is one little book by John Pease. All right. These are important things. And I know I get sidetracked a little bit from the topic of business and business expenses, but my purpose in life, my goal as an accountant is with my clients is not just to do their tax return, because at the end of the day, I can tell you it's pretty boring. It's how do I take my knowledge and experience and my experience of literally tens of thousands of clients over the last 48 years and impute them into other people's businesses to help them guide them to success. So again, we can focus and we'll take a few minutes on expenses because expenses are really pretty easy. But the most important thing really is to decide that if in fact you are in business, and I also tell people there's no shame to say that you're not in this as a business. There's no shame to say that you're in this, to share and to earn a little bit of money. The shame is, or the unfortunate reality is that if we mislabel ourselves, if we think we're a business builder and we're not doing those tasks that the IRS or any other business person would say you should be doing, maybe you're fooling yourself. On the other hand, if you really just want to make enough money to pay for your product, but you're actually talking to people on a regular basis, maybe you're holding yourself back. Maybe you're sitting back and not using the gift that you really have. So first and foremost is be honest to yourself. And when you decide who you are and what you want out of this entity and this business and this gift, then you start to build that model and that business plan around wherever you want to go. Business expenses are easy. Virtually, without exception, maybe one or two, you can't bribe people, but an expenditure that you incur in order to generate revenue is a business expense. And I say that because in some countries, bribing government officials is a standard of doing things. For some odd reason, the IRS does not pick up on that one. That didn't like that. And there are a couple of court cases along those lines. But expenses, whatever you're doing in order to promote yourself, to get your word out, in order to be able to generate revenue streams, create interest. The big ones where everybody talks about is, wow, if you're in business for yourself, you have a home office deduction. Okay, and that's true. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a very good deduction. One of the things that we have to look at on home office deduction is to keep in mind, unfortunately, is that some of the components of a home office deduction are limited because you can't create a loss out of some of the deductions of a home office. But in general, you want to look at the room that you're working out of or rooms. The IRS likes to use the word exclusive use. I have too many business owners who are sales reps or, working from home themselves, and obviously network marketers who work off the dining room table. It's a matter of practicality, but the fact is that exclusive use? The good news is the IRS is not going to come knock on your door. They're not going to come and look at it. Ideally, it'd be nice that we have an apartment or a house that has a room, maybe a guest room, or maybe it's a little TV room, or one that you could, at least part of it, to say is exclusive use. Now, you're crossing over a couple barriers there. If I'm in my TV room and I have a little desk in the corner and you work off that, can I take that TV room? There's a saying on Wall Street, there's room for bulls and bears, but not for pigs, because pigs get slaughtered. So we have to think about that. The other side of what goes into a home office is, let's assume that your home office is 10% of square footage of your dwelling. So if you have rent, you would take 10% of that. If you have a mortgage, you would take 10% of your mortgage interest, 10% of your real estate taxes, 10% of your homeowner's insurance, 10% of your utilities, 10% of your maintenance. And those items are also true if you're renting. Things like internet, cell phone, those are direct expenses. Those are not allocated based on a home office expense. So the home office is a good approach. Sometimes it's simpler to use a standard approach, and that is, the government says if you don't want to go through all the nuances of the expenses, you can simply take $5 a square foot up to a maximum of 300 square feet of an office for the year. and that would give you a maximum of $1,500 home office deduction. Another item, which to me really is number one, and it is the much, much bigger one. It's changed since the days of COVID, since we stopped running out of the house like we used to all the time, but is your automobile expense. And typically what we need to do there is we need to track our business miles compared to our total miles. And what the government wants you to do is have your odometer readings on the first of every year. And if you can do that, and you can quantify that I've done 22,000 miles for the year, and then you document your business. Now, I used to use a little diary to do it, wrote down the odometer readings. Now there are apps on your phone that you can download. I think there's some free ones and ones that you can cost a few bucks a month that you can turn on every time you're traveling for business, and it will give you a report. The reason why the government looks at the total miles and the business miles is that you also have two approaches. You can take your actual costs of running your car and take it by the percentage of business miles compared to total miles. But most of us just simply, we still need to do that, mileage records, but most of us just take the standard rate. So in 2023, that's 65.5 cents a mile. In 2024, that's 67 cents a mile. And I can tell you it adds up if you're out there doing the business. If you're unfortunately sitting at home doing mostly social media, well, there's not going to be, no matter what you do, there's going to be very little auto expense. Carolyn right now is planning a trip to go visit our daughter in New Orleans, and she's already talking to people in South Carolina about setting up meetings and maybe a few along the way, possibly diverting into Atlanta. All right. So he's going to track all those miles. Every year, pretty much we end up going to Sarasota, and we will track those miles, because I can guarantee that every place we go and every place we stop, we talk to people. Not every one of them turns into this conversation, as we all know. But if you don't talk to anybody, then you have no business. So we talk to people, whether it's a rest stop. We've got a really cute little dog. We chit chat with him a little bit, and one thing leads to another. And it's amazing. We've gotten a couple of associates or PCs from rest stops. You know, we'll stop off in Savannah for spend the night there. All right. And we keep track of the people we meet at the restaurants. We walk along the way, and lo and behold, that's a business trip. So we're taking our hotel there, and we're taking the mileage. We get down to Sarasota, and we do the same, even though we have some social time. We don't take those social expenses. But by the time we get done with our travels, I don't know, call it 1,500 miles, you know, we have a $900+ tax deduction just from the auto usage. All right, leaving your home. Here's an interesting one. So much as the IRS will look at is intent. You know, are you intending to make a profit, or are you just having fun? Well, if I got some running around to do today, and I need to go to the supermarket, I also need to mail some samples to somebody. When I leave my house, the purpose of that trip, is it business or personal? And it becomes interesting, specific. If I leave the house and I go to Harris Teeter and I do my food shopping, and on the way home, I happen to stop at the post office, really, I went out shopping. If I leave the house and I go to the post office, and my intention is to mail, and that's the purpose of why I'm leaving the home, and on the way home, not a major diversion, but on the way home, I stop at Harris Teeter to pick up some milk. Now, that was the intent, and the reason I left the house that day was to go to the post office. That's a business mile. Meeting somebody at Starbucks. You know, if we're going to be doing a presentation, you go down to Staples to buy some display stands. Obviously, display stands are a display or marketing expense, or seminar or webinar expense, but the trip to Staples, those miles add up, but you also have to document those miles. Speaking of samples, you know, all of us have our order that we get every month, but many of us are getting extra product. And we have to, as best as we can, trace what we're doing with that extra product, especially if we're getting those samples. All right, are we handing them out? Are we doing demos? Are we doing in-homes where we're actually taking some of our product and giving it as samples to people? Are we doing a 3 and 5 test as David would do? All right, so some of the products we're getting, I would classify either as sample or marketing. All right, we don't advertise typically in this business, but to me, when I am having people sample the gel, or if there's a case where we want to give somebody a tube, I'm not going to give them a bottle. That's not what we do, but we will also keep bottles around the house, cases around our house, so that when we have a new associate sign up, all right, instead of waiting 3 to 5 days for their first shipment, we will often give them their first order from our inventory. Not that we have a large inventory, but we have enough that rotates. And we will give those people, because if they're excited that night to sign up, that means they're also excited to start the product, start using. And really, we don't want them to wait 5 more days. Life gets in the way. We can send them out of our home from the presentation with their product, or at least some of it. If we do the entire order, we'll have that first order that we place for them and ship it right back to us. And if not, then they will return the case or whatever, or the tube of gel that we would advance them. One more deduction that I look at, I think is not been tested, I will tell you, but I think I have strong conviction of this. Once you get to, once you want, in order to earn a check, you need to have 100 PV. Once you hit the executive levels, you have to have 200 PV. And as Debbie well knows, in this industry, there are professional network marketers who don't give a hoot about the product, but they're buying it because they need to have that volume in order for them to earn their commission checks. So I will take on our tax return 2 cases, and I actually put it as an other deduction, and I put it down as purchases required to earn commissions. And so if you are a D300, T700 director, you need 1 case. You would have the equivalent cost of 100 PV. And if you are bronze or above, you would have the equivalent cost of 200 PV. And then beyond that, you just think about, am I spending this dollar in order to move my business forward? And 99.9% of the time, that will be a business expense. I think it's a wrap. Q&A, if you want, or Debbie comments about.
Thank you. And I hope you all know, I think these are all leaders. I think I'm sorry I didn't go into a lot for the introduction. They know Carolyn HOffman and you are diamonds in ASEA and stuff like that. So, but I think they all know who you were. So anyway, does anybody have any questions for Paul?
Have you ever done a comparison between the US and Canada?
No.
Okay.
With respect to what, though? I mean, what's a
tax rules? Because Revenue Canada allows us some of them, and some of them they may not. I don't know. We work with an accountant that is very into the network marketing.
Oh, good.
Industry. We sourced her out, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
So she has been very good at what we have been able to allow us. She has a rule: as it's not what you make, it's what you keep.
Okay, it's true. That's true.
Yeah, but very good.
Yeah. Hey, Joyce?
Yes. How do you categorize improvements on your home?
Well, the challenge with improvements is that they are an improvement. So one of the home office deductions is the depreciation of your home. So what that entails is that you need to look at your cost of your home plus any improvements you make. You have to subtract out the value of the land. And then you sit back and say, all right, well, that's $300,000 net, you use the percentage of the house that you have for your home office, and let's assume it's 10%. So now I've got a $30,000 allocation. And whoopee, for business use of a home, it's a considered commercial. So that's a 39-year depreciation life. So it really comes down to a very, very small amount. In improvements subsequent to, now, are we talking about to the house or to the office itself?
To the house and
Yeah.
the grounds.
Yeah,
Because I want to hold things outside, so I put up a gazebo and a nice patio.
yeah, it's technically all improvements, and you get the allocated amount. I always find a little interesting how the IRS would allow it, because most likely you're not using the gazebo for business. Maybe you are. But the point is this: if you do a $50,000 improvement to your property and you're using your office for 10%, so that's $5,000, and that $5,000 divided by 39 years. So it's a small number, but it is a valid one.
Thank you.
Hey, Ann.
Hi, Paul. Thank you. When you were talking about a hobby, so okay, let's say if you make $2,000 a year, which is only $2,000, then any expenses that exceeds that income are not eligible for tax deduction?
Well, we start that way, and the answer is yes. If the IRS were to determine that you were a hobby, then they would disallow that. Now, there's two approaches the IRS has. One is based on your activity. Is there continuity and persistency in your business? But number two, and really where they hang their hat, is a statutory amount that if you have losses in 3 out of 5 years, they can come in and say you're a hobby. And now we have to prove that we're not, and we show them our business plan and say, look, my business plan says I'm going to make money in year 4 or maybe year 7, but I'm moving along that way. But if it is determined, I would never voluntarily, call myself a hobby unless you truly are. However, I know I've seen all sorts of returns over the years of network marketers that are truly not involved, and they've got their couple $3,000 loss, and they've never been audited. The IRS fortunately has sort of a guideline nowadays, and it's been around for quite a while, is that when they audit somebody, they want to make more than a day's pay for the auditor. So, if there's a $3,000 loss and they disallow $3,000, and you're in a 20% tax bracket, that means the government can maybe get a refund or a tax due of $600. Now, is it worth spending an auditor's half a day or an entire day with all the paperwork that has to be done to make $600? Most likely no. So that's why I go back to the idea of bulls and bears, that if you truly go out and say, I earned my $1,100 for the year and I have $17,000 in expenses, I think maybe the IRS may knock on your door.
Is 7 years the limit, or could it be like 10 years?
It could be, but your business plan needs to be showing that, and then you need to be showing consistently with that. So here's another case years and years ago, and the IRS's goal, there are lots of hoops that we always have to jump through to prove we are what we say we're in expenses, what it is. The IRS frequently only has to find one reason to disallow it, and yet they want us to substantiate. I had a client 30 plus years ago who was an executive for a life insurance company, made very good money, probably closer to 40 years ago. And he loves photography, and in his retirement, he was going to become a photographer. So he was buying really expensive photographic equipment. And he called himself creative photographer. So he didn't take pictures of weddings and portraits and all. He was very, very well. And I kept telling him, this is really a bull. I mean, a pig. And he got audited, and he had big deductions. And guess what? The auditor's brother was a photographer. And he struggled his entire life making an income, taking pictures of dogs and cats and families. And the auditor said, besides all that, my brother never spent this kind of money. You make 150,000 a year, and this is going back almost 40 years ago, and you're saying you're in the business? I knew it wasn't, and I think he also knew. So she disallowed everything, and she was correct. So we have to look at our life too. If we happen to be in a situation where we are staying at home and don't have a full-time job, and we're doing this, and this is therefore this is most of our active time, work time, then that also adds to the picture. You know, if you've got a full-time job and a part-time job, and you're slipping this in every now and then for a few hours a week, again, the IRS's perspective is going to say, is this really a business? Well, if you can show over your continuum what your goals and plans were, what your mile marks are, and that you're actually approaching them or maybe meeting them, then at least you get away from what we refer to as the fraud penalties. You're just going to get a slap on the wrist. But there's a good chance if they see you doing everything you're supposed to be doing, that you would probably prevail in an audit.
Thank you. Thanks.
Hey, Diane.
Thank you, Paul, so much. A lot of golden nuggets in this conversation. Thank you. Quick question. What about personal development courses? Can you expend those as, can you claim those?
Do you think they will help you become a better network marketer?
Absolutely. But would the IRS accept that, I guess is my main question. If I was audited.
I don't see why not. I mean, if you are taking a personal development course in how to be a better, sailor, I would say no. but as long as the outright goal and the people that we train with and we listen to, the vast majority of the time are professional network marketers. Eric Worre, these people. So they are our industry leaders, and we are learning and following their recommendations, suggestions. So the answer is absolutely yes. Company that we were in many, many, many years ago had what was called Silver Training. And it was a 2-day personal development course that the network marketing company ran and said, if you are going to be an executive in this company, you have to do this course. You have to grow. So the answer is absolutely.
Anything else? Paul, that was amazing. Thank you so much.
You're
Really
welcome.
was great. Thank you for coming on.
So
If
I
there's
will,
nothing else. I know you're busy this time of the year.
a little bit. That's all.
A little bit.
I
Yeah.
will, if I may impart a thought, a bit of training. It's something
Of
that
course.
is kind of passionate to me over these years in this industry. And that is way too often, and all too often, once we've chatted with somebody who expresses some level of interest in the technology or the product, our job is to create interest and answer questions. Is also our job and responsibility, I believe, that we attempt to match their needs to the product that they actually buy. And all too often we have people who tell us, well, I'm only going to do one case, or I'm only going to do this, I'm only going to do that. And I find that if we do that, it's an injustice. I had, Carol and I had somebody in our house 20 plus years ago, who we knew, who came to our home for a presentation, who at the time the big package was $5,000, and they said they could barely afford one product, let alone all of them, but even though they would love to do it. And we gave them a demonstration very similar to 3 and 5 with the gel. We gave them a demonstration on a different product. And what happened was the wife said to the husband, "You're taller than I am." It's like, okay, what does that mean? Well, he has always stood fully erect with a slouch. I mean, he just never stood up. It was just his nature. And when he used this particular product, He just stood up. And she was blown away. He was blown away. And can anybody tell me what they purchased that night?
The whole deal.
Whole $5,000 package.
Yeah.
All right. It wasn't because we weren't pushing it. I would never, ever do that. My point is this. We need to determine through questions, what is the right product and product usage for these people? All right. Several years ago in Starbucks, I sat down with a gentleman and we had the same conversation. And he was certainly over 55, as well as his wife. And they had a daughter who was a competitive cross-country skier, runner in high school. And we talked about it. And I said, well, before we even talk about any money, let's assume money is non-issue to him. What would you like to see from this product? He said, well, and I'd already told him that if you're over 50 years old and you happen to be on a couple meds, I was told years ago, you need to have at least 2 cases. One case is going to kind of keep you status where you are. But I was told by very, very smart gentlemen that if you're over 50 and if you're on any medicines, you need at least 2 cases. So he understood that, and that made sense. Same thing with his wife. It made sense for her. And his daughter was competitive. So it also made sense to have 2 cases and a box of gel. And I said, all right, well, let's put that package together and let's first see what we need to meet your goals for your family. And it was an entrepreneurial pack. We all know that's in excess of $1,000. And I said, now that we're there, now I want you to think about your budget, because I don't want you to go beyond what you're comfortable with. If you can do this, if it makes sense, then do it. And if it doesn't, let's back it down. And he decided he wanted to back it down a little bit. So we went down to a business pack, a little bit more than a business pack. And I said, this is terrific. I said, do keep one thing in mind, though. We've already determined that you, your wife, and your daughter each need 2 cases, and your daughter needs gel. Which one of the 3 will not use the product? And he goes, well, we all want to use it. I said, yeah, but it doesn't do them good and doesn't do me any good helping you if you're now going to share 2 cases or 3 cases between 3 people when you already decided you needed 2 cases. How do you want to do it? And he backed up. He said, you know what? You're right. I'm not going to take it. I'll wait a couple months. I want my wife to get the benefit. I want my daughter to get the benefit. The point being here, folks, is let us never, ever prejudge what they are willing to spend, what they can spend. Our job, I believe, is to help them understand the benefits and what would potentially be the right amount for them. And then, so I'll always say, take money off the table. Let's pretend it doesn't exist. You have unlimited money. What would you ideally like to see and use for your products, for your family? And then we'll think about the money afterwards. It challenges me when I see personal packs nowadays getting sold. I sometimes wonder whether they should prefer customers, but I also more think about, is that really the right for that person? Or is it just simply the person said, I can't afford it? And I'm not going to argue with people, but I will never start at the bottom. I will start what I think they need, and then we go from there. And wherever we end up is fine, except we're not going to end up with 2 bottles or 1 bottle.
Right.
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 All right. So that's my.
That's beautifully said and put. And, that's actually what we're training about, is asking questions today. So anyway, because that brings down the gap between people.
Yeah.
If you're interested in them and you are asking them questions, then they feel like you care, and it just makes it so much easier.
And there was one question, Debbie, I forgot to ask you.
Yes.
How long was this Zoom supposed to be for? Half hour or an hour?
I'd said 20 minutes, but that's okay.
All right.
You're just doing your upline, David Silverman.
What do I take out
It was
next
all
time?
great information.
sorry.
Don't worry about it. No. It was wonderful information. And you've taught other things besides just, but the business part, is very important for people to realize. So, you know, because I've been audited, like I told you, this was before, way before the CN network marketing, but I've been audited before. And luckily I had all the data, just like you said, and I was the only one in that whole restaurant. This was a big restaurant in Aspen, and they all had to pay money except for me,
Oh, wow.
because I had all of the documentation. And it's funny, here's my book at where I keep everything that I've ever done, starting from way back when,
Wow.
from 2010 when I started. So I've got how many people came into my organization, what I made, everything. So, and it's very tiny print. So hopefully the auditor has glasses, but I understand exactly what it is.
So you're a ambassador diamond.
Yes,
These are those statements that go, not everybody who keeps those records will become an ambassador diamond, but I will be pretty assured that every ambassador diamond has records like that going back to the beginning of their industry, their career.
mhm.
So try to do what your upline does, try to do what the successful people do, and there's a high probability that you too can be successful.
Absolutely. And thank you again. I know you're very busy.
Could I make a quick suggestion about Debbie's question about the credit card statements and the receipts and what Paul's answer? And it's a note to myself too, is I do the monthly envelope, but I think it would be very helpful to staple those to the credit card receipt or the credit card statement to have them all in one place.
Perfect. Yep. Mhm.
I just keep my receipts by month, and they're all clipped together. So if I was ever audited and I had a statement and what happened in January and they wanted to know January of 2020, I just go to January of 2020 receipts and pull them up, and I'd be showing them all. I'd be trying to waste their time too.
How do you
'Cause
deal
I
with
know
those?
that works.
How do you deal with those receipts where the ink fades over time?
Well, the IRS, unless they have a case of fraud against you, they can only go back 3 years from the date the return was filed. So hopefully you can save your receipts in a way that in 3 years they don't fade. Or nowadays, they have little scanners. All right. So a scanned copy of the receipt is still good. It doesn't have to be the physical receipt. So, if you scan them and save them, just make sure you have backups, because, the dog eating the homework or my hard drive crashed is not a defense to the IRS not having documentation. So make sure you have backups.
So Paul, if I understand you correctly, you only have to keep your records for 3 years, is that correct?
That is correct.
Filing?
That's
Okay.
correct. Yeah.
Thank you. It's a great presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Didn't you say longer is better though? I keep mine
Well,
for 7.
It-
That's why.
it's better only because I have clients who have 20 years. So if they want to keep 5 to 7, that's great. The one exception would be if you were to, and it's probably not very applicable here, but if you were actually to have an asset that you're depreciating, let's assume you bought a mobile home, a double wide trailer that was your office, and that's where you did all your ASEA business. You would be depreciating that over a number of years, 7+ years. So the receipts related to the purchase of that need to be kept, because you're taking a current deduction, so therefore you have to prove the origin of it.
Okay.
But your typical meals and auto, it's 3 years from the date of filing the return. So your 23 tax return, if it gets filed on April 15th of 24, you're going to need to keep all those receipts until April 15th of 27.
And there's a difference with Canadians too, is we have to keep ours 5 to 7 years in terms of the CRA in Canada.
There is certainly something special about Canadians. Thank you for that. I don't know. As I told Peter, I know nothing about the Canadian law.
All right. Well, thank you again.
Well,
There was
thank you.
another question. There was another question in the chat. Debbie, did you get it?
Well, it says, the very last one says, I keep my receipts, but many expenses are done online. Therefore, I keep the online receipts in a special file in my email address. Any other recommendations?
Again, a email PDF type copy of a receipt is perfectly fine. Just make sure you've got backups on it so that, you know, you don't have a crash or, you know, you drop the computer and they're gone. That's all.
And I made a special folder. I'm always talking about folders, and I put receipts on it. And then I just put the receipt in, what it is, and the date of it.
Yep. Yeah.
So I just keep it all in a folder instead of an email, because emails get
Well,
lost
emails
very easily.
take up a lot more. The good thing about emails, one thing about saving all your emails is that in today's world, because you're prospecting and corresponding with people, that is your documentation of what Ann did 25 years ago by writing, or Debbie did, writing down every little conversation they had. Your emails are your conversations. So if you go to the greatest thing you can do if in an audit is first off and say to the agent, you know, my goal here is to establish the fact that I am in business, and let me show you my documentation. Forget about the expense stuff, and then just bring, you know, 150,000 emails with you, and say, here's my last 3 years worth of communications, and maybe you got it sorted by person. And they're gonna go, oh wow, you really are active in this, aren't you? All right. And I did that with one case who was not in a network marketing, but it was in a strange kind of a business. And I spent, you know, Russian, Soviet magazines and French magazines and all books that he wrote around the world. And we spent a half an hour proving that he was a professional or a expert in a particular field, at which point they couldn't argue that that was his business.
And if they see 300,000 emails, they'll probably let you go anyway.
There you go.
They don't want to, they don't want to go through all that anyway.
You could do that. Yeah, that's
So,
good.
all right. Well, thank you, Paul.
All right, guys,
Round of
appreciate it.
applause. Thank you
Great
so much.
successes. Work on your business plan. I always say, take a bottle of wine, sit down with a glass or two, and start to dream and fill in the roadmap.
Thank you, Paul.
Everybody have a good day.
All right, thanks, Paul, very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Well,
Session. Thanks.
Good session.
it's been an hour, and I was going to give you another assignment, but I haven't even gone over what it is. So what I could do is stop this recording if you want, let you guys go unless you have extra time, and then put out a very short recording of your assignment. If you would like to do that. How many people need to leave right now?
I can stay.
Okay,
Let's
I'm
go.
actually homesick, so I can stay.
Yeah,
Okay.
just go for it, Debbie.
all right,
Yeah.
I will go for it, and if you have to leave, I'll send it out, and I'll send it out that you'll start at an hour and 5 minutes into it, if you so you can just move the dial and listen to the end. Okay, so all right, first of all, I would love your assignment last week was to lord 5 people. I'd love to know how many people did that, so if you lorded 5 people, put a 5 in the chat for me. Because again, this is all for you. I'm not keeping that much track of that. I hope you've all turned in your MTRs. Perfect. Many people did the Lord. That's great. I did mine. I should put a 5 in there, I guess, so that you see that too. So, all right. I'll make this quick. Did anything come up for you guys that you wanted to discuss or anything like that, though, when you were lording people? Was it awkward? Did you find it easy? You guys are all pretty experienced, so I'm hoping you found it pretty easy. It just kind of gives you a structure. And like I said, since we're going back to basics here, because there's just so many things that get skipped in a training sometimes if you don't go back to basics. So the thing is asking a question, basically. That's what we've been talking about. If you don't ask the question, first of all, you don't create a rapport, and or you never finalize or end up capturing their answers. You could be giving them all this information and just keep giving them information. If you don't ever ask, are you ready to get started? People will just never start. You've got to be able to finalize your sale, basically. So if you're not in business if you're not asking a question. And again, some people are very direct, and that's only a small percentage of the population. Some people would just get right to the point. Those are, the A-list, A people, not A-list people, A people, and they just want to cut to the chase. And a lot of men are like that, I can say. They don't want all the frilly stuff on the outside. But if you go direct like that, it does offend most people. 90% don't want to be come on direct. And especially if you're talking to people in social media and things, if you come right out and say it, they think that you're just an object. You're looking at them as an object to be able to promote and get your product out, basically. So so that's why we always tell people to ask questions and be purposeful with your questions. And sometimes nothing happens. You might rule out, and then depending on how they respond, so you're actually interviewing them also to see if they would be a good fit for the business and the product also. Everyone's probably a good person for the product, but not always for the business. So when you get to the point, you've asked enough questions and you have weeded out people that this may not work for, or they may not need this or something. If you say something like, I've come across a revolutionary health technology that's changing the world, is this something you might want to know more about? It kind of rolls off of your tongue, and it's very easy for you to say and do things like that. So that's what you kind of want to get to the point of. So if you're lording, you get to the nuggets that you can come back to. So you've already asked them some questions. Recreation. Some people might complain about always having to be at work and never having time at home and not making enough money and stuff like that. Well, you've got all that filed. Now you can go back to them and say, hey, I was thinking about you. I've been doing something that's been bringing in extra money, however you want to put that. And I thought maybe it might appeal to you. You seem to be a person that loves people and cares about them because you've already talked to them. So you can go back very easily. But if they brought up a health challenge, of course, you can always go back to them for that too. I've been thinking about you. You said your knee's been killing you. How bad is your knee, and what has how has it impacted your life? Do you like to work out? Do you enjoy being outdoors and your knee isn't allowing you to do that? Ask them a bunch of questions so that they feel like you care, because hopefully you do care. That you feel like they care, and you're letting them know that you're very genuinely interested in them. And in that way, when you make them interested, then they want the information that you have. So, and if you're not where you want to be, like if you're just starting this business and stuff like that, instead of saying, I have a plan or I have a system, you could say, I have a coach, I have a mentor, and I have a system who's helping people get out of this situation. So for instance, if it was money, working at a 9 to 5, or not being able to be with your kids. And you can use that, because that way you're not saying I'm successful and I can help you. You're saying I have a coach and a mentor who is helping me. I'm changing my life. I'm getting around this. But you have something that you can offer them. And then you might be more relatable at that point to them. If you are successful, you can say, I've helped many people turn around their finances or turn around their health. And most of you on here have been around long enough to be able to turn around people's health, definitely. If you're just, like I said, if you're just starting your business, you might want to say you have a coach or something. So, and I would set out a chunk time of your day to set aside when you're going to respond. A lot of people jump on it. I mean, I have, for instance, my ex-husband, we're on a family text thread. Literally, anytime we put anything out, he's on it immediately. And we're like, do you have a life? Are you always looking at your phone? So for instance, you may, if you're doing this full time, or you're not, if you don't have another job, you may spend from 9 to 11 in the morning just working on your business and not responding to anything. You know, you can look at them later. They're not going to leave. You can get back to them whenever it's a good time for you to get back to them. You don't have to respond immediately or feel like you necessarily need to do that. So I know in my last business, I had a chunk of time that I would follow up with my business partner, and we'd be accountable partners. And I would say how many follow-ups I'd done and how many calls I'd made and everything like that. And that was just a set time of the day. So you know, that's what I still do. I still make time. You know, I say from here to here, I'm going to sit down and return emails and call people and do that. And it can fluctuate depending on your schedule or your other business. If you have business, a lot of times you might have to do it in the evenings. So basically, you need to figure out if the person is a suspect or a prospect. And a suspect says, you know, they're interested, but you haven't qualified them yet. You need to qualify people to make them a prospect, that they're really interested, that they are going to look at the information and they are going to get back to you, and you're going to have a follow-up appointment with them. And the way to do that, again, is to ask questions. A suspect is just curious. Oh, you have something? I might be interested in it. But a prospect is very serious. And so before you send out any link, if they say, oh, yes, I'm interested, before you just go ahead and send out links, because we're all very anxious to do that, and the link is going to take care of everything for us. It doesn't always. Sometimes they don't even open it. Start asking questions. Let me ask you, why would you want to make more money? What is it that you really want? Do you want to get out of your job? Do you want to just make more money because you have a certain trip in mind? How is this going to set you up? What have you tried in the past? Have you ever added a second job or a gig thing to your schedule? It's essentially just digging in deeper to find out what the person is actually interested in. And again, you're finding out for your own sake. You're building a relationship. You might be working with this person. Most all of you, I didn't know before I got into network marketing, but many of you have become very good friends of mine. And so you want to make sure that you're getting the right people into your organization that you actually want to work with and that actually you want to be with, as well as is this a good fit for them? I mean, if they have no personality and they're never asking questions, this probably isn't a very good business for them. They need to go be an accountant like Paul. I'm kidding. I'll send him this part of the and the same thing goes for, you know, the product. You know, if you've got a bad knee, like I said, how's it affecting your life? What would it mean if your knee issue was resolved? How's it going to open up your life? How's that limiting you? I want to get a sense of what's going on in your world so I can make sure I can actually help you. Let me better understand. And do you see how that kind of just changes the energy? They really feel like you are concerned, that you want to help them. And this is something I think that's very important, rather than just sending a link out. It just changes the whole dynamics.
Debbie,
If
do we
they,
have those questions? Sorry.
yes,
Do we have those questions somewhere written, like how this is going to change your life?
I do. I always do a written transcript of what I just so I have my course in action for you guys. Basically, I spend a lot of time doing this. So yes, I can send that out to people. I just think it's important, again, going back to the basics. These are some of the things I was never taught when I first started, and I had to learn them by stumbling. So if I can help anybody go faster with this, and so they're not just throwing up stuff on people, because you'll never get anywhere if you're doing that. They're just going to feel like you need them, and they're just going to push away. You want them to need you. Oh, you've got some information that could really help me. I really want to learn about what that is. So you have to set yourself up as an authority. Let's see, where was I? I'm trying to do this quickly because I know it's late. So if I send you a link, when would you have time to look at it? Make sure you're setting up the appointment before you send the link so that you have a follow-up already. So you'll say, I'm going to send you a link. When would you have time to look at it? Because you're going to have questions. I always tell people, I had a million questions when I first started. If they don't have questions, they're not thinking. But anyway, so you're going to say, I have Monday or Tuesday open. Are either of those days good for you? And let them come back to you and set up the appointment right then with a time to it so that you know who you're calling and when. You can tell it's a prospect if somebody's really leaning into you. Yes, this really sounds good. I'm all about holistic or natural remedies. I'm all about cellular health. This is right up my alley. Then you know you've got a prospect that really wants to learn more. If they lean out and they say, oh, this is okay. This is just what happens when you get old. I don't listen to anything but my doctor and stuff. Then, okay, you lean out also at that point. You back away and you say, okay, well, if that's what you want, that's fine. But sometimes this FOMO thing hits them and they're like, they have a fear of missing out, in other words. So all of a sudden they might think, wait a minute, she's not pressuring me to do this. What does she know that I don't know? I might want to know what she knows because, there's something out there that I don't know about. And so then they lean more towards you and then they say, well, maybe I am a little bit interested. Could you just send me something? They probably won't do much of anything, but then at least you can send them a link and, the link might open their mind a little bit. Who knows? It wasn't, they were leaning back anyway to start with. So if you qualify people before you send the link and you know that they're a suspect or a prospect, it's just going to help your business move faster. So you can ask all kinds of questions. What have they tried in the past? How has that worked? Are they really actually looking for a change, or are they trying to change now? I've actually asked people, do you really want to get well? Because some people hold on to their illness. That's their form of getting attention. And they don't want to really get well because nobody will pay attention in their minds, they're thinking. So ask them, do you really want to get well? Why are they trying to change right now? Is this pressured them to the point where they really can't go on anymore without, making a change? Or could they kind of shift along in what they're doing right now? What will life be like when things do change? How does the shift impact their personal life? How about their business life? What will it be like if it doesn't change? What are their circumstances like in 2 years if they still have that issue? So if their knee's killing them for 2 years, think about it. They might be getting fat because they can't exercise, and they're still eating the same amount. They're not being able to go out with their children, whatever it is. Find out. Will that be all right? Who's responsible? Are you responsible for taking this into your own hands, or do you put everything on your doctor or whatever it is? Who gets to decide if we have another income stream? Is that your decision, or is that your spouse's, or do you have to make the decision together? Have conversations that people aren't having. Other people don't ask these questions of people. Most people don't care that much. They don't get into deep conversations. You're trying to figure out if this is a good person to come work with you, be with you, you know, talk to you. I mean, there's certain people I would not want to talk to on a daily basis. Do I invite them into my business? No. Most of them are negative. So, and you know those people. Then say you just, you know, I believe I have an answer. And when you ask questions about them, they're into it. Yeah, I have a solution. And you need to talk to them about a system. And I got that from Danielle and Fraser, and I've done Fraser many times. I've been in his inner circle, and he talks about it, especially in ASEA, that we should say we have a system to restore cellular health, because we do have a system to restore cellular health, and it may not just be redox. If they're losing their hair, you might want to suggest radiance. You know, this is a system, and we're all part of that system, and we work as a team. We're never putting people in there alone. So we are all the system, basically. And people want to know that they belong to something and that they really want to be helped by a team. They don't want to, you know, maybe they've never done network marketing or next level marketing, and they have no idea what to do. Well, the team teaches them. This mastermind can teach them. You guys are brilliant, and some of your statements and some of the things you've suggested are brilliant. So they could be part of that. You have a system to offer, and make them know that that's who we are. And we're an ethos, and we're very integrous, and we don't want to just bring you in as an object to make money. We want you to be part of our family. That's a big deal. So if I had a system that could show you how to make money online, would you be interested in it? That's a system we teach. You can meet my coach. My coach has done it if you're not there yet. So you can introduce them to anybody who's been successful and can kind of prove that, or you know, they know that. Do you see how this is powerful? It could cause people to rise to the level of ASEA. We want them to rise up to us. We're a very ethical, beautiful company. We don't want to get down into the squalor of, oh, this is just another network marketing company. This is just another pyramid. Da, 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 da. If you're being professional and you're asking these questions and you're showing your authority, you're going to rise them up and make them realize that this is something serious and something that, you know, they need to step up to if they're going to be part of this. So you're qualifying people. And years ago when Tyler was, and it's in our ethos and stuff like that, when he was teaching, he did so many beautiful teachings, and they are in your back office and stuff. And they're on YouTube, the ASEA YouTube channel. And if you've never heard the one about the 3 questions, it's a beautiful book. Most of us all have it at this point. And if you are kind of new, then you won't know it. But the book asks, what is the most important time? Who is the most important person? And what is the right thing to do? It's a beautifully illustrated book. And the little boy goes through this whole scenario in this book, and he finds out at the end that the most important time is now. The most important person is the person who's in front of you. And the right thing to do is whatever is the right thing for that person, the best thing for that person. And it is a beautiful book. If you don't have it, it's the 3 questions, and it's by someone very famous who I can't remember right now. But anyway.
Tolstoy.
Tolstoy, right, Tolstoy. And he wrote a children's book, but it was to make that you think, basically. So that's what you're doing in your business. You're putting the person in front of you. You're forgetting all about everything else going on in your life. You're putting that person right in front of you. You're listening to them. You're asking a bunch of questions, and that's what'll grow your business. So don't go out there just chasing rabbits and not getting anything. Start asking questions. So, and it helps you from saying, what did you like best? or do you have any questions? It keeps you from saying that, because they don't even know what they have questions about yet until you've talked to them. So, so your assignment is to go out and ask questions of at least 5 people, qualify them, see if they're a prospect or a suspect. If you can do more, do more. Of course, the more you do, as Paul was just saying, the more you've got a business, basically. But do at least 5 people, because I know some of you work full time.
And you'll put this assignment in print, Debbie? Joyce had to go, so she said, please.
Oh,
please
yeah.
share the
I'm gonna
assignment. Be in-
record this, and I will tell her to start it an hour and 5 minutes into it so she can listen to the training.
Put your assignment that you just spoke. That'll be put in.
You
No,
want
not
this
all
whole
of
thing?
the words.
Okay.
No, the assignment.
The
you
assignment.
just
Yeah. Okay.
Printed as such.
Yes, the assignment again is to ask questions of 5 people and to qualify them as a prospect or a suspect by
Okay.
really asking them a bunch of questions.
Debbie, can I talk to you after this, please? Just a phone call.
Sure.
I'll call you after that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anyway, any questions or anything that pops up for anybody that anyone wants to know?
Just a quick question. So for the people that were lording, this is separate group than, let's say we're approaching healthcare practitioners, we don't want to lord them, right? Because kind of, sort of.
Well, kind of, sort of. I mean, you're still gonna be interested in them, and you never know what you're gonna find out if you have time. That's the thing. If you're with health professionals, you don't always have time. Over time, I have learned that what Cameron does for, relaxation, what he wants to do, where he wants to go, where he wants to be, he's got 2 kids, all kinds of things about him. So yes, I would lord them as much as you can. But if they're interested in this, you're going to qualify them by doing what I just said, basically, just asking them questions, is this something you'd like to get into your practice? If this can really help people, I mean, if you learn about it and you know that it's going to help, do you want to put it in your practice? Is this something you just want to use privately? Do you and or your family have health issues? And you're going to dig deeper, because hopefully they'll give you the time if they're truly interested. And you might set up a time, if it's a doctor, you might have to set up a time after hours or something to talk to them. Just say, this will only take maybe 10 or 15 minutes, because you can dig pretty deeply in 10 or 15 minutes. And because they usually don't want to give you too much time, because they don't have time with their family then.
Perfect, thank you.
Mhm.
I also wanted to ask, have you by chance seen, I just ran across this, the big picture webinars that Bob and Trish send out, in our newsletter. If you go to the bottom on the right-hand corner, I just happened to click
It's
that
10
on
o'clock.
Friday. And there's some amazing short little videos on there that are totally beneficial. But the one I found was the icebreakers with Big Al.
Yep. Yeah.
He states that as soon as you use the word interest, so, and this is exactly what I've been doing wrong, is, I'll get into a conversation with someone and I'll say, well, if this is of interest to you, would you be interested in? Well, as soon as you say, would you be interested in, people automatically think she's trying to sell me something. So they bow out. So he's saying not to use the word or the sentence, are you interested in, but to say instead, would it be okay if, or wouldn't it be great if, and then solve the problem, have the solution to whatever their problem is. But not say, would you be interested in? Anyway, maybe I'm saying it wrong, but I think it's only like 20 minutes, that video, but totally, huge eye opener in how we use the words that we're using. And I know that's what I was doing with everyone.
I think if you ask enough questions and you kind of pique their interest and you say, I have something that might be able to help you. At that point, if you've gotten them enough into being a prospect, meaning they've really piqued their interest because you've asked so many questions, you can say, well, if I send you something, would you want to see it? I guess you could say that instead of interest.
So
Would you
you're
want
not
to,
using the word interest, yeah. Would you be interested in? or
would you
whatever.
want to, would you want to see something?
Yeah.
You know, that I have, you could say it that way, but I think you could use the word interest at that point, as long as you've qualified them enough. I think
Okay.
that's where people fall short. They're just not asking enough questions.
Yes, yeah.
Lisa?
I have a quick question, similar, not exactly like, Diane's, but when you have someone that says they're interested more for their health, so let's say in the product,
Sure.
and you know, they say they're interested and then they're just kind of waffling, and is there any language or a question? I tend to say, are you open to hearing about something that can help you? And then they say they are, but then they don't order. I
Have
just,
you asked them a lot of questions before? Let me ask you that.
that's what I'm wondering, what maybe is those
That's why,
specific questions, like what you were just talking about. Yeah, I'm like, maybe I'm not asking the right questions the right way.
the other thing, if you've already done that, is you can get back and say, you told me, you said you were interested and I did send you something. And it's okay if you're not. I just want to know, if there's
I like
something
that.
that you didn't like about what you saw, or do you have questions in your,
You have more
know,
questions?
you have more
Okay.
questions or something like that, or can I send you more? This is a real product. And if they bring up network marketing, I always say, you don't ever have to do the business, but the product
Right.
is extraordinary.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
you can
thanks.
say that if you've already done it the other way. Yeah. And this doesn't work 100% of the time, what I'm saying, of course.
No, it's just,
But if you ask a lot more questions, you're going to get a lot more people interested in and feeling that they are being looked at as human, like we want to do.
yeah, going back to what you were saying earlier in the call too, is like, not that there's a specific time that you wait then to follow up again, because you
Right.
followed up, they've said interest, then they just sort of go cold, and so I like what you just said. Hey, you showed interest before. Are there more questions I can answer? Why is there a reason you're hesitating? That type
Well,
of,
make sure you take, just say, if you're not interested, that's okay.
yeah,
But I just want to know so I don't keep following up with you,
there you go. Okay.
that kind of
Thank
thing.
you.
And
When there's a lapse in communication for me, my first reach out is, please let me know you're okay.
Hmm.
We were in communication. I haven't heard from you in a while. Please let me know that you're okay.
and I've done that too. Especially if I've tried to get a hold of them several times and I haven't been able to. Just please let me know you're okay. Because I've had some people that weren't. And for all of you who haven't, because I think Grazia is new and I don't know that she always knows everything. If you go to ateamsupport.com, and the first thing that'll ask you is if you want to sign up for the newsletter. Bob and Trish put out a newsletter that most of us all get. I always get it. She does a recap of, she first starts with a did you know? It's about product, or it's about, something happening in the business or something, but it's always very interesting. It's a great thing to capture, especially if it's about the product and stuff, to drip on people with. Did you know that this raises glutathione levels by 800%? Blah, blah, blah. You can send that out. People might be very interested. But then she goes into all the different events happening. She congratulates bronzes and above. And it just kind of keeps you aware of what's going on in ASEA, basically. It's an overall view, and it's very short read. And, I try to read it every week. So anyway, so just go to ateamsupport.com and sign up for their newsletter. And Grazia, do you have another question? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, first of all, for all the information for today's webinar and everything else you're doing. Really appreciate it. Having said that, my question is similar to Lisa Dobbins. I have similar experiences. Again, I'm extremely new in network marketing, and I'm not a seller. I'm more in health. So I'm trying to approach people from that aspect. However, you already answered most of my question, answering to Lisa. However, I would like also to hear your suggestion. Once you contact them back, and I love what Pearl said, are you okay? First of all, asking them your concern if they are fine, because I contact them. They say initially that they're interested. After I send them some information, and after that is MIA, and I wait for at least 1 week. I don't bug them, and after once again I contact them, and after I don't. Is this correct? How many times do you follow up? Because again, I don't want to be, oh, again this one type of thing. What are your suggestions? Thanks again.
Well, first of all, as I said, ask a bunch of questions so that they are very interested. That's
I
one
don't
thing.
have, that's my other I don't want to say issue, but I don't know how to explain it. I don't have the option of asking questions because this is either text messaging or emails. So I send them, like Alan Noble's initial thing or something similar to that, knowing what problems they have or their spouse has, etc. And they say they're interested. And after I send some other videos and a little information, more information, and after I don't hear from them anymore. So I don't have the option of asking questions.
Well, there's your issue right there.
Yeah.
My daughter, when she's I'm using her as an example. I do this too, but my daughter always, if she's texting or getting online with somebody, that especially that she doesn't know. I mean, if you know them, call them. I wouldn't text and email. I would call them. Calling gives the conviction in your voice. You can ask those questions, all that kind of stuff. But if she's reaching out to people, she'll say, I would like to get on a private Zoom with you. I'd like to see, if I can help, or if I can help you with your business, and or if you would like to know more about mine. She makes sure she gets in front of them somehow. If it's local, she'll go meet them. If not, she'll Zoom. You're making a big mistake by just texting and emailing. That will never work. I can tell you that. You've got to get in front of these people, and that way you can ask these questions. That way they will see, and then they won't ghost you. Because, whatever they saw, maybe it's network marketing. A lot of people are turned off by that. And they see maybe it's a great product, but it's network marketing. Well, then they'll ghost you. But you haven't even had time to talk to them about it. So you've got to get in front of people by talking.
Okay, but how to make them because amongst certain groups, okay, social media groups, etc., health related, and when I put a little bit of information about ASEA without mentioning ASEA, of course, there are people that they're saying to me that they're interested and they would like to learn more. So at this point, should I say, let's jump on a Zoom call?
Would you mind? I can explain it a lot better in person than I can by texting and emailing or sending a link. Would you mind jumping on a quick Zoom with me? I'd like to know more about you and to see if this can help you. To see if this can really help you. I don't want to waste your time. Make it all about them, though.
Okay, I understand now. And after that, if it's the case, we send Alan Noble's overview, in Real Redux results.
Sometimes you don't even need to do that. Sometimes if you're explaining it, you've got my slides even. Sometimes if they get into it, you can explain it, but you're asking them questions ahead of time. Oh, why are you interested in this? That kind of thing. Is it your health? Are you frustrated with where you are? Maybe you don't like what you're doing. I love what I do. Ask them questions to figure all that out.
Thank you. I got it.
Sure.
I hope I got it. Thank you.
Well, we'll just keep working.
Another comment that comes up for me, Debbie, is when I reach out to someone, out of respect for your time and mine,
Yeah.
can we please, I'd like to put something on the calendar and reconnect with you. What's a good time for you?
Yeah.
That's another one of the classic follow-up coaching, is that we have to have an appointment on the books, or because sometime is never.
Right.
We'll get
And that's why
together
I said
sometime, that's
I don't
never.
want to waste your time.
Right.
Or should I send them my Calendly calendar type of thing? Or it wouldn't work?
If they said sure, you can send them your calendar. If you know, I would get to the point of saying yes. I would like yes, I'll meet you. I'll Zoom with you. I'll get on a phone call. Zooming is better because then you can show them things. But and then you're kind of like meeting them. So yeah, once you do that, here, let me send you my calendar, and pick a time that's right for you. And then you have it on the books. All right, I hope all this helped. I'm sorry it was 2 hours. People that miss this are going to die. But anyway, anything else? Thank you all for staying. And
Yeah, it was amazing. Thank you so much, everybody, for asking questions, because sometimes I don't know what to ask.
only if something comes up for you, Daniela.
I love it. I love it.
Sending healing blessings your way, Danielle. I don't know what's going on, but
Um,
sometimes we
I
have to get knocked flat before we'll rest.
I just have a cold right now, so I guess it's a perfect day to stay and listen to you guys.
Oh, perfect. All
Opportunities are
right.
still. Just
Long as
always
it's
come
nothing
from
worse
your
than a
heart,
cold.
guys. In the back of my book, one of the mini pearlisms in the back of my book is that when I speak from my heart, people feel it in theirs. Just always
Aw.
come from your heart with a genuine concern for another human being. They're going to feel your concern. Is that as long as that's where we're coming from, we want to make sure that they know we care about them, not about selling them. And I love the definition of salesmanship, the transference of enthusiasm for something we believe in. And when we're coming from a truly caring place, people are going to know that.
Yes, 100%. 100%. Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Let me
Because
stop this recording.